But currently in Syria, there's been this huge conflict that broke out amongst the Druze separatists, which are a faction of sort of a weird religious sect that has to do a degree with Zoroastrianism, although they also sort of pull their own religious concepts from a little bit from Christianity. They believe that Jesus was a prophet. They also believe that Muhammad was a prophet. So they're kind of an outlier. The Druze, there are about 1 million plus in Syria at the moment. There's about 100 or so thousand Druze in Israel. And because there's so many Druze in Israel, and because the Druze in Syria are right on Israel's border, there's been a lot of historical cooperation amongst the Druze and the Israelis. And recently, when this conflict broke out in Syria, it was between the SDF, which is like the Syrian Defense Forces, so the government itself, also the Bedouin tribes, so sort of factions of tribal forces which have existed in Syria for quite a while and have been rather prominent since the Syrian civil war, since the overthrow of Assad. So, since these conflicts broke out, I did a bit of interjecting on my original video about Syria as to how Israel is playing its own hand in this conflict, and it seems to be showing itself more and more every day. So originally, the reasoning that was given for the conflict breaking out was there was a merchant who, and it was a Druze merchant who was captured by one of the Bedouin tribes, and it caused this huge conflict to emerge. And while I think the kidnapping of the Druze merchant itself was probably not something that was initiated by Israel or the Syrian government, while I don't think that's the case, Israel and the Syrian government have used the current fighting in Syria to further their own agendas. So since the Syrian civil war, with all of these sort of factions that have arose in Syria, the new government under al-Jilani, who is now known as al-Shura, the new government is trying to sort of grow its influence in the region. And so they have been trying to buddy up with the Druze as much as they can. In fact, when the conflict first broke out, the Syrian government didn't target the Druze first, mainly because Israel had announced its support for the Druze, and you had Druze militants in Israel crossing the border to come help